Hey there. Welcome to TV Coast to Coast, a weekly, semi-weekly, semi-regular gathering of TV critics stationed on all the great American coasts, East, West, Gulf, and whatever that coast is in Cleveland. And my colleagues this time are Christy Turnquist in Portland and Mark DeWidziak in Cleveland. I'm Dave Walker with the New Orleans Times-Picayune. All of our contact and Twitter information, in most cases, will be on screen or in the text that accompanies this. We're going to talk today about late night. And since we last gathered to discuss late night, and I think that was for the premiere of the nightly show, which seems like a long time ago now, there have been even more changes. Jon Stewart has announced he's going to step down from his show on Comedy Central. We're nearing the end of the Letterman era. Colbert is going to take over there. The Larry Wilmore thing is evolving and I think very interesting. There's actual real talk on late night talk because of that show. Very topical and often very funny. The end of the Letterman era is starting to feel a little melancholy. I don't know if you guys saw Norm Macdonald on there last week, but it was just like one of the sweetest, greatest Letterman moments. There was just a lot of mutual appreciation. I'm enjoying this last little bit of Letterman, and I think he is too in his own kind of cranky way. But today we're going to talk about the premiere of the next guy on CBS at the Late Late Show with James Corden, which premiered Monday night or Tuesday morning here in New Orleans. And replacing Craig Ferguson, who had been a stalwart there for a long time, who had done an offbeat kind of an alt late night show for many years. Very funny, absurd, surreal. The Marx Brothers meet Steve Allen. I don't know what I really loved Craig Ferguson in that role, and Corden comes in without real talk show credentials, but with all kinds of show business credentials, mostly acquired in Great Britain. Can sing. He's done theater. He's been on TV. He's been in film, and he's very self-conscious and self-deprecating about what he's doing on this show. Most of the first episodes seem to be about that kind of introductory apology. Here I am, and I'm not sure why I'm here. I really kind of like that. I thought he did a pretty good job. The produced pieces, the opening video where Jay Leno shows up, all kinds of cameos, I thought that was really funny and smart and well-paced. The interview segment was unusual and I think really full of hope in that he brought both guests on at the same time, rolled his chair out from behind the desk, and talk to everybody at once. I mean, that reminded me of, more than anything, of like, I got the box set from the Merv Griffin show before Christmas and just totally fell into that for hours at a time because they would talk. There would actually be conversation. The segment on Corden last night didn't seem overproduced, and I really liked that. The only thing that really kind of freaked me out and made me wonder was Reggie Watts, who's the band later sidekick. He's Corden's Arthur Treacher, I guess. I don't know. But he's a talented musician, and I think that'll work itself out, but it just seemed weird to me and not all that successful. On the whole, I thought it was a pretty cool first outing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. I'd like to know what you all thought. Christy, why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, I think, sort of, as you were saying, the last time we were talking about one of these, sort of seismic shifts in the late night, it was about Larry Wilmore and the nightly show. And we can see how that has evolved. And that's always going to be the case. We're just going off our first impression here based on one show. And these shows, if they do last, inevitably kind of get tweaked and sort of tailored as they go on, as the host gets more comfortable and the show gets built to really emphasize, the show's strengths or the host's strengths. So clearly the show's going to evolve. I had very pleasant first impressions. It was a very pleasant show. James Corden is sort of going out of his way to introduce himself to us, since he knows very well that people watching are saying, "Who are you?" So he had his parents on. He talked about his wife and his kids, and I thought all of that, was fine. I also think that having both guests come out at one time and sit on the couch can be a really fun way to do it. And I think he's said that he's influenced here by the Graham Norton show, which I am totally addicted to. It's on BBC America. And in that show, you know, the host just sits there in his chair and all the guests come out at once, you know, no matter how big they are, you know, Ben Stiller, Sean Penn, and then usually some English person that I don't know. And they're all sitting there on the couch having a chat. And it makes for kind of a nice conversational, spontaneous feeling. It was funny to watch it last night because Tom Hanks even sort of made a joke about how, you know, he felt sort of disoriented, and, you know, they were sort of on the opposite side of the stage that the sort of classic late night talk show arrangement consists of. You know, usually there's the host at the desk and he's stage right, and then the guests are stage left on the chairs or the couch, and this flipped that. And, you know, that was frankly about the only sort of major innovation it looks like Corden is interested in making. But as I say, it's early yet. We'll see where he takes it. He was certainly likable. I agree with you that Reggie Watts is, you know, probably going to have to find his place. He's fresh off the utterly absurdist IFC show Comedy Bang Bang, which was a very different thing. It seems like they're, you know, here they're kind of trying to do sort of a Jimmy Fallon Questlove thing by having kind of this hip guy, Reggie Watts, on. So we'll see if he and Corden can dovetail. I hope they can, because that could be fun. That could be interesting. You know, all in all, super first impression, but I thought it was very pleasant, if not super remarkable. Mark, what did you think?
Same. You know,
Same. Okay, we're done. Bye-bye.
We could pass right at that because I'm going to be trying to say what exactly you said in a slightly different way. Let's see if I can do that. In these first episodes, these premieres are always kind of like Rorschach tests. It's almost like, you know, you put up the ink blot and you say, okay, what do you see? What do you see that looks good? What do you see that doesn't look so good? And you're kind of trying to predict the future, and really you can't. These things are always works in progress. I always say, you know, the first night doesn't say anything. If we went on the first night of Conan O'Brien, he wouldn't be in the business anymore. He had an awful first night. He had an awful first year. You really have to look at these shows a year down the road to see how they gel, how they develop, and whether he finds what strengths he's got and play to those strengths. For my taste, you know, and I had sort of an ambivalent feeling about this. I was a big Craig Ferguson fan as well, and I like this. He's a pleasant fellow. He has a very likable personality. I kind of like the sketches that he did. The sketch he did with Tom Hanks, I thought was a lot of fun. But late night doesn't need that. If you really want to stand out in late night, go back to sort of what Dave was talking about, which is, why not make a talk show a little bit more talk instead of it just being, okay, you're here, so we're going to play the comedy game a little bit, or you have something to promote, or you have a new movie, or whatever. How about some real discussion? If I was going to look down a year from now and say, if this guy really wants to stand out, maintaining sort of the quirky humor, but also emphasizing more of actual discussion, that would be different. That would be refreshing. And if you could keep the edgy humor in there, you might have something. In essence, we don't really need this show. I mean, that sounds harsh, but we don't. We don't need another person who looks like this, who acts like this, and talks like this. We've got a plethora of these shows everywhere. And I'd like to see him maybe go old school on this, you know, and be new by going back to what used to be very appealing about these shows. There were moments which almost got a little real last night in the discussion. Every one of these shows, when you talk about talk shows, they seem canned, they seem prepared, and that's because they are. The surprise moments are not really all that surprising. And I wouldn't mind seeing a little unprepared. I wouldn't mind seeing something actually come out of the discussion every now and again. Maybe he could be that guy. And I don't think that would be entirely a bad thing. Any of you guys want to jump in on that?
I agree that maybe doing less of the package pieces. I liked the Hanks thing, but I thought it went on too long. It went on too long because he's done so many damn movies, and that was part of the gag, I thought. But I thought when he rolled the chair around and actually sort of sat there, and you're right, there were real moments. There were like awkward, unscripted, I'm a little off balance moments on the part of the guests, and you just never see that on these shows. They're all those interview segments are all super produced now, because the publicists who feed the guest chain, the supply chain of guests, want things to be really carefully set up, and
Right.
I'm hoping that there'll be some drift in this thing where it's not that way all the way. Christy, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, just, and I think maybe kind of what you were sort of getting at partially too there, Mark, is that, Jimmy Fallon has had such success with The Tonight Show, but I think a lot of us are yearning for the day when, I mean, I never thought that I would look back at Jay Leno and say, what a terrific interviewer. But, compared to Jimmy Fallon, Jay Leno was, the best. Fallon's show is so produced, so formulaic at this point, basically. I mean, no matter who the guest is, they do some game, they do some fun little thing, something that can be perfectly plucked out and, sent around the internet the following morning for people to share. Let's look at Julia Roberts doing something goofy with Jimmy Fallon. And I mean, at first, when he did it on his late night show, that felt fresh to me. But by this point, it's feeling so formulaic. And I think, like you, I'm sort of craving, a late night talk show where there's actually a little talk. I'll tell you who's gotten better at that is Seth Meyers, who got off to a pretty rocky start on his show. It took him quite a while to sort of find his footing, but I think he's gotten a lot better as somebody who can actually talk and listen, which is something Jimmy Fallon does not seem able to do. So I think Corden, certainly, that's within his abilities, and I'd love to see more of that as well.
Yeah, I would just like to see something which was more real, just something which was. I'm not asking for a return to Jack Parr breaking down every night on the air, but I think just a little bit of, genuine discussion and really seeing people as real people, and not just, as you say, they arrive with the publicist having said, now ask him about this. He's got a great story about that. Now you've got a great story about this. Yeah, it's like everything is like a heat-seeking missile aimed at that packaging. And shaking that up a little bit and going for the unpredictability, that may be the way to stand out in late night right now. Yeah. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing. Well, all right. So with a beginning, we also talk about an end, because something's coming to an end. A little show you may have heard of called The Walking Dead. And they end its season, their fifth season, Sunday night. And I guess I'll start this one, because I've had my doubts about this season, and it's been up and down, and I think there have been some things they have done extraordinarily well. I never thought they would rush the Alexandria story as much as they have, but they have really pushed this. I figured we'd spend a season in Alexandria getting to know people, getting to know things. We're already at that crisis moment. And what I think they do well, and they certainly upped it this past Sunday night, is tension. No show since Breaking Bad makes you sit there on the edge of your seat hoping for volume, where you just go, I can hardly sit here and watch this. The emotional value of this is so high. I've got to get up. I've got to walk. This is. I think that's why they call it The Walking Dead. It's because you have trouble just staying in one place after a while. And this last night, they really ratcheted up the emotion in this episode. And I have my thoughts about what's going to happen. We're heading for a cliffhanger, obviously, and we're also heading towards the moment which Deanna, the head of Alexandria, says to Rick, "Get out." And then there's going to come the moment where they need him, where she's not only going to give him power, she's going to hand it over willingly and say, she is not a wartime prime minister. She is a peacetime prime minister. Everything's fine. She ain't Winston Churchill. So when the threat, and there's a threat out there, that those zombies with the W's or the M's carved in their heads are a threat. Something's coming. They're going to turn to Rick and say, "You take command now." So, I think that's where it's heading. I think we've got some, and I think they've in the last couple episodes have positioned this very, very nicely. They've got me. They've got with whatever missteps they have taken, and I think they've taken the fight last week. For those of you who have not seen The Walking Dead, please stop listening now. The fight last week.
No problem.
Is a great, for instance. There's this incredible old-fashioned John Wayne Randolph Scott fight where Rick and the drunken wife-beating doctor Pete get into it, and it goes on forever. It's a real knockdown, drag-out, eye-gouging fight. But you're looking at it and going, This is a drunken wife beating doctor. Rick takes this guy down in 2 minutes. This fight does not go, 15 rounds the way it does in this. Do they take storytelling missteps like that where you go, oh, come on. Yeah, they do it all the time. Every show does. So did Breaking Bad. So did the best shows on TV. But the good part of this is the reason you are so suspenseful and you are so wanting to see what happens is because you are so emotionally invested in these characters. That's what works on this show. That's what continues to work on this show. And that's why I'm going to be watching on the edge of my seat Sunday night. Guys,
well, I liked the fight. I thought the fight was pretty good. I mean, Pete's a big guy. Yes, he's a drunken wife-beating doctor, but he's a big guy. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, one of the things that I have most enjoyed about the second half of the season, and I've had my doubts about it too, I didn't expect, like you just said, I didn't expect the Alexandria stuff to move this quickly. I was relieved that it did. And actually, going back to the first part of the season, the Terminus stuff moved pretty quickly. I mean, they've sort of been racing through a lot of high-stakes things, the stuff with the hospital, all that. I think they've had a few challenges this season as the ensemble has gotten larger, sort of balancing the ensemble. What I have especially liked, though, even during the parts where I was feeling impatient with the second half of the season, is the renewed emphasis on Rick Grimes, because Andrew Lincoln is so good in this show, and he's so underrated, and just sort of seeing the trauma that this guy has gone through and the way it's affecting him and continues to affect him. I mean, he just keeps changing, evolving. He's still Rick, kind of our moral center, but is he? There's extra elements that are being added to the character as sort of what we thought of as the character of Rick evolves, as others have said, more into the character of Shane, who we remember from the first season. He's so adapted to doing whatever it takes to survive that has taken over a lot of other aspects of his character. And I've just really been enjoying watching Andrew Lincoln sort of center stage again, because I am his fan, and I think the show just wouldn't exist without him. So it's been a real pleasure to sort of see him at work. I also have to give a huge shout out to Melissa McBride as Carol, one of the best characters on TV. I love her. She's, she's this woman who has come from being a battered wife to, again, doing whatever it takes to survive, making some hard decisions, to put it mildly, and then turning on a dime in Alexandria, adapting to her, crate and barrel surroundings, and sporting cardigans to try to, pretend that she's just a nice lady who likes to make cookies, whereas, she's scheming too. And that has also been a great element in the second half of the season. Now, I don't know how it's going to end. I suspect we will be seeing more about who's responsible for the W or the M, marks left on victims' foreheads and these terrible dismembered body parts. All I know is there's supposedly another surprise guest on The Talking Dead next week, which makes me think somebody else is going to die. And they've been sort of getting rid of characters throughout the season. Yes, they have. So I don't know who the next one is going to be. I just hope it's nobody major.
I was chuckling when you said that the ensemble has gotten so big, but it always gets smaller at the same time. Because they are not afraid of killing people off on this show, and major ones, or ones they've just introduced, as they did last week. But I agree on Carol. My goodness, this is an Emmy-worthy season for that. Just while the fight was going on, there was a brief pan over to when Rick is telling everybody and telling Deanna, your way is going to get people killed. You've got to stop this. You've got to know this is a different world. And there's a moment where the camera's on Carol's face and she's just smiling like, listen to him. This is what the world has become. Just that look was more than the whole fight. That look had more layers to it than the entire fight which preceded to it. So yeah, it is a heck of a performance. Yeah. So yeah, I can't believe it's already over. I mean, I enjoy this show so much. It's like, really, we have to wait till October now. Oh.
Yeah, but Mad Men's coming back.
Well, yes, that's
you people in your zombie show. I have a feeling you could just talk for hours about this. The internet's tired. I'm glad we got a chance to sort of look ahead at it. I know that you all both derive a lot of pleasure from that show. I still can't watch. I'm still terrified of it. I'm still a big baby.
If Carol just appeared behind Dave right now, just, you people and yours on.
We better get out of here. Thank you both very much, Christy and Mark, for pitching in this time. This has been TV Coast to Coast, semi-regular gathering to talk about the brand new shows and The Walking Dead. And we'll be back next week, or some combination of us will be back next week. And I thank you both for doing it, and thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye.